permission. All right. So today, I wanted to spend a bulk of time having you guys share out your ideas because we can learn so much from one another. And I had some good ahas from some of the material that people sent me, which was really cool. I want to start with a warm up though first. And let's start here. Let's say we want students. I love this exercise because it's always taxes me a little bit. We want students to be able to do this versus this, to know to put the two in. And I know we can do swimming and watching, but we're not going there. We're just going to say, I like to swim, I like to watch. We want them to be able to put the two in and not to use it when they're doing these things. I like ice cream or the park or nature. So before they can do this, what are the things that they need to know?
Parts of speech.
Specifically?
Okay.
Verbs versus nouns.
Nouns and verbs. Yeah.
Verbs versus nouns. Okay, good.
And the
To
two.
know the being issue.
Can you say more, David?
Well, to be,
So what about it?
well, I'm not sure how to, that just jumped into my mind. I'm not sure how else to explain it. It's the doing of something rather than a feeling about something.
Oh.
State of being.
So this is a state of being.
Yeah, as opposed to doing of a thing.
Well, are they doing things here really?
Yeah, I like to swim. I like to watch.
So this
So
is
I like swimming. I like watching. I like reading. That's what jumps to my mind as a distinction.
Can we say activities, maybe? Activities.
Yeah, okay, that's good.
Things. Which is right.
Similar,
So
yeah.
this is
activities.
This is
Versus objects or versus,
Emotions. I don't.
yeah, well, it's interesting because we have this emotion in both places.
That's true.
This is a really interesting point because we talked a little bit last time about how much to use the meta language, how much to use the teacher talk or the technical words for things, and if we can get them to know a verb from a noun, it takes care of sort of some of it.
How about acting versus feeling?
Acting versus feeling. This is feeling about acting, right? We
Yes.
still have the feeling.
That's true.
They're both feeling like I like on both of them. They're
Right.
saying they
Yeah, that's
like,
true. That's true.
but one of them is something they're doing, and the other one is an item or an object or a concept. Nature.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
That's where it's tricky.
It
Nature.
comes back to how to explain this, right?
Mhm.
And see, this is the whole thing about language that I like, is the idea of concept formation. It's got nothing really to do with teaching. It's just my area of study.
Yeah. Okay. What else do they need to know?
Base verb. I mean, I see, the to swim, but
The
it's,
infinitive, the infinitive.
yeah.
Or infinitive. Yeah. Right. We can. I underlined just the two, but so was it Misty? We were talking about chunks, teaching in chunks. That maybe this should be part of the same if we're teaching about infinitives. Robert, right? We could teach these together. That's a chunk.
And that the ing verb can substitute for the infinitive. I think that's another thing that's helpful.
Well, at this stage, is it helpful?
Well, it'd be
we-
another way to say that, convey that same
Well,
message.
that would be a completely different concept that you would. have later.
Right, we have to decide what to do with this. We have to decide, do we bring that up front? Rhonda, do you want to talk about that?
I probably wouldn't, just because I would feel like that's not the focus of this lesson. You're focusing on trying to get them to say two. And I'd also wonder about even underlining the swim, watch, and read. I'm not sure exactly why I would question that, but if you're focusing on the fact that they're leaving off two,
Mhm.
and you're trying to
Hmm.
them to understand that there's a reason why we put two in there and not in the other one. I don't know.
Well, at some point you can focus on, after you've talked about two, you can focus on what's the difference between swim, watch, read, and ice cream park nature.
Exactly.
Right.
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah.
But what do they need to know? I mean, it's probably very helpful to understand verbs versus nouns. I think
Mhm.
that's kind of a key thing right there.
I'll just say one more thing about the ing, being able to substitute ing. With my students, before doing something like this, actually, well before doing something like this, we're starting to learn present continuous. And they're learning that when you have ing, you need the be verb, am swimming, am going, am reading, are, so say bringing it in over here is really confusing. A little bit later, I would hold off on this one also, partly for that reason, because it's really confusing to go from the present continuous to using the ing here in this context.
That is assuming if a student, one of the students doesn't bring that up.
Yeah. So
Right. So it does really matter like who the audience is. And in this case, because you're trying to highlight, I like to swim versus, I like ice cream, direct object, noun versus like the object of the verb to swim. And then in that case, I would definitely not be bringing up ing. Now, gerund nouns would be later in a completely different lesson. It's totally out of place in this case. But if a student brought it up, then where would you go with that in that moment? I guess I would throw in that caveat. Because students will bring that up, they
Mhm.
always, oh, you teacher, you can say I like swimming.
Mhm.
And then
For
what do you
me-
do with that?
For me, it would depend on what the teaching context is. If I'm working one-on-one with a student, I can do something different with that. I could bring in, oh, you have the option, you can do substitute. I am watching, if they already seem to know, if they're bringing it up, usually they're coming from a place of having heard it or knowing
Exactly.
about it, right?
Mhm.
If they've been saying it as an error, I swimming, they're probably not going to bring it up in this context, right? If it's a class and I feel, or more than one student, and the other student or students I feel are not ready for that, I
Mm.
would say, yes, that's another way to do it. Today we're talking about two.
Mhm.
And I would just zoom, let's focus back in. That's a great question. Other comments on that? And sometimes a student brings it up and they're not ready for it either. And you could also just focus back.
Yes, you're right. And we're going to do this. Yeah.
Right, yeah. So we've been focusing more on the difference between the brown or whatever that is and the green, but what about within these three sentences? What do they need to know to be able to do? I like to
Like
swim. She
and like.
likes.
When to
Yeah.
say like and when to say likes.
And how would you, can you break that down?
Like
Um,
present tense.
Third person present.
Yeah, they noted in third person singular.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and within that, how my friend had it, the whole concept of pronouns, which, right?
Mhm, pronouns.
I was reminded again in class, my classes this morning, that, yeah, they know he, she, they, but how complex can we make a subject before they stop realizing that, oh, this is they? Because in order to choose this verb correctly, they need to know that this is they.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And usually I totally wait on we because, you know, they see this and they don't want to go to we. And it doesn't matter for a lot of verbs, but of course for the be verb, it does matter.
When do you do my friends? And what comes before that when you have a subject pronoun? My, knowing this is they, this is third person.
Just start with the singulars
Okay.
for yeah, first. And usually I know we,
Like my friend. I mean, what do you mean?
yeah,
Okay.
my friend is he or she. And once we really have a good handle
Uh,
on that, we'll go into the they,
Okay.
multiple people. So I teach I and then you, because those are the first things that they're going to need to use.
Right.
Once they have that, I go to he and she, and then the plurals come after.
That's right.
But even once I introduce the plurals, when I have them together, I'll put he and she by themselves in a different color. We think about, we're trained to think I, you, he, she, we, they, right? But then the he and she, which are always different, are in the middle. So I'll always put the ones that are the same, I, you, we, they, and then once I introduce we and they, and he and she are by themselves at the bottom until they really have that dialed in.
Mm-hmm.
Which takes a long time
Which takes a really long
for the
time.
third person. Yeah.
Yeah, I read somewhere that final S in the third person is one of the last things. It persists in level 4 and level 5.
Mhm.
And Lisa had the great point in her materials that sometimes they don't know or they don't remember, or sometimes it's just a pronunciation thing,
It is.
right?
And in fact, they're hearing themselves saying S, but we can't hear it.
Mhm.
Yeah, right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so in that similar vein, 4 different kinds of activities. I want to know what is easier and what is harder. So what would you do first? Fill in the blank substitution drills where you're giving them the same similar sentences over and over, and they have to fill in different things here. Classifying nouns versus verbs. So maybe you give them a list and they have to separate them into 2 columns or identify them. Flashcards, picture on one side, word or sentence on the other, multiple choice. So what kind of activity do you think is easiest and what is hardest?
I kind of go to a different question, and I'll just throw it out there, is which activity is more basic and which needs to be addressed first before the higher level activities. So
Yeah,
that was my way of not answering your question.
But that's right. Which is more basic and which is higher level, which is more supported, to go back to the framing that we talked about the other day, which is more supported and which is more independent.
We said that they had to be able to classify noun versus verbs to even start this lesson. So that would be a good place to start to see if they can do that.
Yeah,
I
right.
agree.
That's what I was thinking too. It's like, aren't they supposed to already know that?
Mm-hmm.
So before we go off that, classify nouns versus verbs, you could ask them to come up with a list of nouns, ask them to come up with a list of verbs, versus giving them all kinds of words and having them choose which ones are nouns or verbs. What's easier?
Giving them the nouns and verbs.
Yeah, choosing.
Right. Choosing is always easier than coming up
Mm-hmm.
by yourself.
So then with that, multiple choice would be in there at the beginning somewhere.
Right, multiple choice, because they just have to choose from what's there.
I think I would do the flashcards first, and
I would too.
that would then and then talk about nouns and verbs and like, oh, what did you see? I mean, maybe that would be a logical next link. I don't know.
Are the
classified-
flashcards verbs and nouns? What's on them?
Yeah, that's,
Well, if it's a picture, okay, I guess I was just thinking they were nouns.
But the problem with the flashcards being before the classified nouns is that you have a picture on one side, basically you have to come up with the word or sentence on the other side without looking. So that's almost like there's no choice there. I'm thinking about myself on Duolingo.
Mhm.
And I know that when the words are there for me, and I have to just click which one goes next to write the sentence, it's a lot
Multiple
easier than
choice.
when I have to type a sentence and I have to come up with a word of my own. So the flashcards for vocabulary, the word is on the other side, but you don't have it when you're not looking.
Mhm. That's
I
a
guess
heavier,
that's-
cognitive load is heavier.
Flashcards might be words that they already knew. So that's a good point. I was thinking, oh, these are flashcards for words they're familiar with. And then let's classify these. Are they nouns or are they verbs? So I was looking at it a different way. Yeah.
Yeah, but that's a good,
Right.
before you go to nouns and verbs, you might want to, just check, right? Make sure they know. If these are things that you're pretty sure they know, but you want to review them, you could do that first, and maybe you do something different with flashcards here.
Yeah, it depends if you want the flashcards for just a single word vocabulary, or you expect now the complete sentence using two.
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Has anyone used flippity flashcards?
Mhm.
What is that?
So I'll just bring some up. So we
Yet
can
another
see.
app.
Right. It's free though.
Mhm.
Here,
They're good.
these are some, oh, whoops, I need the link. With flippity flashcards, you get kind of multi in one. This is what we were doing in class today. And this was not, we did lots of things with these body parts before we gave flashcards, because like people said before, this is not supported, right? They have to come up with the word. So, we have more body parts, and I didn't do sentences. Usually I put sentences on the back, but they're free. You can look, I can send you the link. It just uses Google Sheets, and you put in, whatever you want to be on the flashcards. If you want pictures, you have to put links to the pictures on the internet. So this is the flashcard, but you can also, they can see the list. They can hear a mechanical voice saying the word. They can do a matching exercise. So this is a little bit small probably to do here, but tongue. And there's a little bit of support in that the colors,
Yeah.
because I made them different colors, but you don't have to make them different colors, in which case they'll come up with the same color cheeks. And you can have them literally write. So this is the least supportive. They have to write, and they have to spell it correctly. And this is really hard if you have a sentence, right?
Mhm.
So that's another object. Okay, any comments? I hope this is, for me, this kind of exercise is really helpful of thinking, okay, this is what I want them to do. What do they need to know first? And what do they need to know before that and before that? And to really, that helps build the scaffold. And I often create exercises or activities, and then I look at them. I think, no, you know what, this needs to go here, and that needs to go there.
Mhm. And also, as you're going through the lesson, if the pace of the students is different than what you had planned, then you can adjust accordingly, which is the case, I think, every day.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Okay, let's go to breakout rooms and let's see. We'll have 3 to 4 people in a room and start by, I know many of you did have a chance to do the homework, which was awesome. Not everybody did. Try introduce yourselves in your teaching context. Some of you know one another, but many of you don't. Share the key elements of your teaching lesson outline. So you might not have time to go through it all, but what are the key parts, the parts that you're either that you're most proud of or you think are cool, or that you have the biggest questions about, areas that you want feedback, ask questions. And yeah, I'll visit, but click the question mark button if you do specifically want me to come.
Great.
All right. Let me create.
I see. Are you doing random?
I was going to do random, but I was going to keep you and Rhonda apart.
I'd like to be with someone who does upper, 4, 5, 6.
Yeah, well, that's a good. Okay, well, who does?
Are you
who's
afraid
up-
we're gonna butt heads or something?
Yeah, really.
Yeah,
No,
you guys know each other, and you have other opportunities to
I know, I'm
connect.
just
So, okay, upper level. Who want upper level?
I teach
Les,
more advanced students.
Anissa,
Yeah.
anyone else?
Lowest level.
Lois.
I teach people who have been here for a week.
Ooh, big job.
Oh,
Big job.
If you want more of those, by the way, I have some.
Hmm.
I got a call from another Ukrainian man. His mom just arrived, but you can only meet on Wednesdays. I don't know what that's about. Okay.
Send them over.
Anyone else want really the very lowest level?
I like low level too.
No, okay. I'll make sure you guys are together. And the others, well, maybe Rhonda and Leslie, maybe you should be together.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Either way, it's fine.
Yeah, and the lessons hopefully can adapt to the different
Right.
levels. Hopefully.
All right, so I'm going to do this manually because otherwise it's too difficult to put people together. Okay, and let's say Anissa, Rhonda, and Leslie, and
I think it's kind of nice to slow down and look at some of the beginner type of materials. I feel like I haven't spent enough time doing that recently. So it does give me some perspective. I think it's very helpful. Thank you.
yeah, well, and we'll come back in and see. Okay, what are
Mhm.
the key, the most salient things that salient
Yeah.
things that you want to share? All right, here we have, I think, probably about 20 minutes, especially since 2 of the groups have 4 people in them, and yeah, we'll go from there. All right, here we go.
A lot of time.
Sorry, Susan, Lisa.
I'm surprised.
Listen, finish what you were saying now.
Okay, excuse me, everybody. I had to finish what I was saying to Misty, and you probably all do too. So I used the lesson on Monday with my students, and I had a little evaluation type thing today, and they remembered. Now, whether they can use it spontaneously, I don't know, but I just want to say one quick thing that might be of interest to everybody. I don't know. We talked about how much meta stuff, and I found they really like that. They wanted, I thought they were choosing today, is this or is this a possessive? And they got into that, like, oh, possessive, they wanted to know that. And they also really liked learning the word apostrophe. So I just want to
Yeah.
throw that out there.
That's a useful one.
Anyone else want to continue? Whoops.
Happened to your video.
Anyone else want to continue? That sounds like Lisa, Leslie, you guys got cut off.
Mm-hmm.
I think
It's all right.
Leslie-
I just
Oh,
started,
sorry, go
yeah,
ahead.
I just started, so no, it's
I'm
too.
sorry.
I was just going to tell Leslie, on the conditional 3, I would also add the sentence where it goes the other way around,
Yes.
right? Like just
Sure.
to have that as example as a comparison as well in your, yeah.
Yeah. So always the question is, at what level do you start to add the complexity, for controlled practice? Is that in the first stage of controlled practice? Right away?
Your advanced student might be ready for it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. I agree.
So that's a question that came up in another room also, is when you have the students can do whatever you throw at them in terms of controlled activities, but then when you want to get to spontaneous speech, they're just not there yet.
Exactly.
And we have to continue going back up and down the continuum, to go back up here and come down and go and come into various places, and starting a new lesson, a new session of class, right? We might go, let's do a warm up in the more controlled space and not expect that they can start class by doing what they were able to do at the end of the last class. What other tips and tricks or ideas for getting students to more comfortable using the grammar in spontaneous speech? How do we get down that continuum?
Have them work together in groups and one-on-one, if you're not doing just one student, but have them do their work and listen to each other and give them, they critique each other and help each other out.
Yeah. Choose what to focus on also, right? If the lesson is about present perfect, let them make all these other mistakes about these other things. Let's not worry about those things, because if they're not going to be able to focus on everything at once, right? So we're just going, and maybe we raise a hand, maybe we have a signal with them that when they're talking, we can signal a mistake like that, and then they can decide, are they going to stop and address it, or are they going to continue going? So it gives them more power. It identifies that there was a mistake. It doesn't necessarily disrupt the flow. They can, I did that with a low-level student. Actually, she wasn't that low level, but Chinese student having a really hard time with he and she. And I just did cards of a woman and a man. And while she was talking, I would hold up, if she got the pronoun wrong, I would hold it up, and then she could decide whether she was going to go back and fix it or not. And then I had her tell me stories about her daughter, and I gave her the female card to hold while she was talking about her daughter, that those should all be female pronouns. So it's going to be, last time Anessa brought up the performative versus competence, right? Sometimes they know, but they're not going to remember every time, and that's okay. We don't need to correct them every time they make a mistake.
Exactly. I still have a student who is, probably in her, 40s, and she works in the corporation where I teach, and she's still saying colleagues versus colleagues after 2.5 years of working with us. And I've just given up on that. Like, it's fine. sometimes.
Right, so-
Yeah, I think he and she is more important, but it's still colleagues.
She
I
will have a
just-
at some point, she'll have a conversation with someone who won't, someone professionally, who won't understand what she's saying, and it will be important to the conversation, and that's when she'll get the message that she needs to,
Yeah.
she needs to correct it. So I shouldn't feel bad that now probably 2 weeks in, we're still doing back H's and stomach H's.
Yeah, okay.
Other things that came up in groups that you want to bring up here? I have a bunch of topics.
In our group, Misty talked about chunking the learning in a different way, and it made a big difference. And I really like the concept of chunk two things together. I don't often think that way, and that's very useful.
I'm glad you brought that up, Lucy. It's almost as though you knew what was on this slide.
Probably because I
A
sent,
ringer, you've got a ringer.
probably because I sent it to you and you knew what was going to be. on.
Yeah, this comes from our email conversation, Misty. So in Misty's lesson, it was about, sorry, I'll bold this. It was about this is versus these are. So rather than teaching about this and these, and also teaching about is and are separately, and then the student has to choose from 4 possible combinations. Let's use this as a chunk, and always, because this is, we put those together constantly, and these are, we put those together. And if we'll put them in the same color. If we're going to underline them, we'll underline them together. We'll just do everything visually also to show that they come together. And then the student also only has to pick between this, and not between 4 different possibilities. So what other kinds of chunks, what other kinds of language can you think of that might be a chunk?
Can I just add to the this is, these are?
Please.
Because I taught intro for 1 year before I moved up to level 5. And I do remember the cool game of this is a watch, a what, a watch, a what, a watch, a what, a watch. This is this, and these are. And so it was all chunked in one of the games that my colleague taught in China. So she was the one who taught me that. But there's your chunk game at the end of the class, and you go around in a circle.
That's great. And that
Remember that?
repetition. And
Yeah.
then also you don't have to the articles. There are entire books describing the rules of articles in English, right? We don't, certainly with beginner students, we don't have to go there. But in what Leslie's describing, the watch, it always comes together. A watch, a watch, a watch. So that's great.
I have a question.
Yes.
Just for the group. I use mnemonics an awful lot, just in a lot of things that I teach or try to explain. And it just occurred to me that in teaching this is versus these are, you've got is in this is, and it's a constant. And I would be inclined to say, here's a way to remember. Does anybody do that or find that useful?
Because you have this and is, looks the same, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure you point that out to students, that would be helpful for them. Yeah.
So what are some other examples of teaching chunks?
Yeah.
I have one more question about this previous chunk here.
Yeah.
Are you going to explain singular, plural, singular subject, singular verb, or are you just going to teach, remember this goes with is and these goes with are?
I would, at this level, if you're teaching this, your students are pretty low level, right?
Low level, yeah.
I would just have pictures of, a picture of a single thing, a picture of a plural thing.
Of 3 things,
Of 3
okay.
things, right, yeah.
Okay, rather than explain the
Yeah.
grammar, okay.
It's really hard to
Okay.
explain, and going, if you speak their language, it's not that necessarily, well, I have another point on here about translation. Let's hold the thought about translations, but yeah, I would just show it, help the student make the connection directly from the words to the meaning. Okay, so other kinds of chunks. I'm thinking Nadine was talking about present perfect and Leslie was talking about past perfect. Those are kinds of things, right, that have been, you can, and Leslie was talking about the difference between saying, well, the present tense of this plus the past participle, or do we just put these together and say, you know, teach in the context? You might have a student who learned a different way and they're going to bring it up, and then you can decide whether to redirect or address it. But the compound tenses don't exist in a lot of languages. They don't exist in Russian or Ukrainian. So putting the verbs, putting them together and teaching it together as a chunk is could be a good way to do it.
Isn't early on you teach, you know, nice to meet you? I mean,
Yeah,
those first conversations with students, they've always got those memorized. And then,
right.
Yeah, language chunks, like rather than grammatical.
yeah,
Because I'm thinking right now like grammar chunks, because normally the formulaic speech chunks, that's important. What would you like? I'd like, you know, but
would you? Yeah.
yeah.
How about
Mhm.
how about for prepositions of place? Next to,
Oh, yeah, yeah.
right, in front of.
Right.
Right, we teach
Mhm.
those together. We don't need to talk about, well, you use in and that means that something, and front means something else. We can teach this all together in front of.
And plenty of phrasal verbs like that, like
Phrasal verbs, yeah.
Phrasal verbs are big.
look
Yeah,
up.
right.
Mm.
Yeah, look up, look over. So if it doesn't, you know, when something has multiple words, whether it's a whole sentence, students don't need to, we don't teach students in the level 1 or 0 these individual words. We teach them nice to meet you, right? And same thing in other languages. Other ideas? Okay, so translation. Whether it's Google Translate or you speak the student's language, when to use translation, when not to use translations.
Vocabulary,
Mhm.
if you're unable to explain it, pull
So
up a
word.
photo or maybe translate it.
I always try the photo first,
Yeah.
and then when I'm desperate, I go to translate.
Yeah, we don't know if the translate, unless you know the language, you know, oh, is that right? How many times have you, I don't know. I've certainly had students translate something on their phone and gleefully show me the translation. I'm like, okay, that makes no sense in English.
Mhm.
So,
Exactly.
or a meaning that has multiple words, right? If it's a simple word, oh my gosh, today we're working in healthcare, and my this was in my intro class, level 0, and I had I get a shot. So I was introducing verbs about going to the doctor. I get a shot, and one student knew the word vaccine. Of course, that's something probably that 3 years ago no one would know. And another student started cracking up. And I said, Diana, what is so you're laughing? And she said, a shot.
Oh. Good, that's great.
You know something about the student.
That's
Yeah,
right.
multi-purpose word too.
Right. So translation can be really dangerous if we don't know the word. And it can be dangerous for one word. It can be really even more dangerous for multiple words, right? And I discovered that Google Translate, I was communicating, the student was writing to me in Dari or Pashto, I can't remember, it was an Afghan student. And I was putting their translation, their sentences into Google Translate, and it was giving me nonsense. And I realized that Google Translate was, I finally looked and it was thinking that it was, I can't remember, some other language that uses the Arabic script. And I hadn't paid attention because you can have it detect what language it is, because I didn't know at first. And another one that said, eat dead flesh. So just imagine if
Just
we're
eat
then,
meat.
Yeah.
we're like she was trying to get placed into an English class. I'm not sure that's what we were talking about. So imagine if we're translating into their language, it's a little scary what we might be telling them.
I've tried to translate using several different apps. And so once I do it, I just want to check it. So I'll put it in the other way and it says something totally off the wall.
Right. That's a
Do you
good,
guys ever use Context Reverso? That website
yeah, that's
dictionary.
Uh-huh.
That one helps me because I also teach German. And so sometimes my students will ask me something, and even though I speak German, I have to like go back and check and see what word I should give them based on the vocabulary they're asking about. So Context Reverso helps me because I sometimes know something's wrong, but I don't know what it is. So I go to Context Reverso and I'm like, oh, okay, that's what it is.
so you can plug in the word that you want, and it gives you sentences using that word.
Mhm.
Yeah,
So here,
contextual.
chair, nominated as chair, in this case, is not the thing that you
It's
sit
not
on.
chair. Yeah, exactly. Thank you.
Right?
Yeah, yeah.
There's another similar one called Lingway.
Oh, yeah.
Mhm.
Lingway is good. If you're working with Russian speakers, many of us are working with Ukrainians now.
Mhm.
Whoops. My very favorite is openrussian.org.
Mm.
Because it gives you sample sentences, it gives you pronunciation, it gives you all the declinations, because in Russian grammar, I'll put that in there too. So earlier someone said, I'll try the pictures first. If pictures work, I would really, really encourage you just use pictures for all of those reasons. And I had a student tell me once, several years ago, a Spanish speaker, she said, I stopped translating. I realized if I can hear the word and think of what it is, think of the object, it's so much better and faster than to think of the word and think of it in Spanish and then have the meaning, right? So, and it's a natural tendency for a lot of us and students to translate and in our heads. And if we can nip that in the bud by going straight to the pictures. Now, when we're going to more abstract ideas, it's harder, but we can get across exciting. It's so cool. Right? Or sad, or, feelings, or, actions, or, yeah. And yet the word, when I was taking Russian at PCC, it was being taught immersion style. And there were some times when, we were beginners, the teacher's first language was English. And so was the first language of all the students. But sometimes she was like doing contortionist things, it seemed like, to try to draw, and like, okay, if you just give us the word, we can all move on. So sometimes that works. Okay, here's another question that came up. New vocabulary. So how much? So have you seen the grid? I'm not gonna be able to try to draw it, but I should have done this before. If you can picture like a 4x4 box and think about the activity being new or known, and the the language, whether it's grammar or vocabulary, being new or known. We want to try to avoid being in the box where both the activity is new and the language is new. If we're introducing a new activity, let's do it first with some known vocabulary or known language structures. If we're introducing new language structures, let's try to do it first with an activity that they know. So they don't have to figure out, it's all about cognitive load. Someone brought that term up before. They don't have to be figuring out what is it that she wants from me and trying to figure out the new language. Students appreciate that. So, okay, so known activity. Thanks. Oh, she's gone. Known activity, new words. How many new words? How much new vocabulary can you cover in a lesson? Reasonably. Should you cover in a lesson? How about that? What kind of guidelines do you give yourselves?
I thought it was between 7 to 10, wasn't it? I mean, it was low.
Others?
I want to know.
Thought it was.
My friend who lives in Thailand said 3 to 5, no more than 5.
Yeah, have you tried learning 10 new words in an hour? I don't know, maybe when I was younger. Other?
And it may be the type of word as well, you know, like if they're all nouns or they're very concrete, you can draw them. That's different than abstract concepts, or even just a bunch of adjectives describing a character. Those can be actually pretty easy to grab onto. An adjective in front of a noun.
That's a really, really good point. Are they things that go together? Right? So maybe they're not counted as totally separate. How much context, how much are they grabbing onto something that the student already knows? I read some research that said that it's if you want to learn round numbers, you'll understand in a minute why I'm saying this is round numbers. Rather, if you want to teach 9 new words, let's say you're doing food and cooking, it's way harder to learn the names of 9 vegetables than to learn 3 vegetables, 3 cooking terms, and 3 other things about the kitchen, like a chair, a table, and I don't know what.
So categorize them.
Yeah.
Right.
Uh-huh.
That if trying to learn multiple words from the same category at once makes it really easy because they all fit in the same box. And when you're looking in the box, your student's looking in the box for that word, there's so many things in there. Whereas if you have 3 that go in one box and 3 that go in another box and 3 that go in a different box, then your student only has to choose between those 3. I still
Makes total sense.
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
is that there's some colors, purple and brown in Russian, that I can't get because I was learning them at once with too many other things. And I still don't remember which one's the fork and which is the knife and which is the spoon. And that's only 3, but they're in the same box in my head and I can't choose between them.
It's very much common sense, but it helps me a lot in introducing vocabulary to keep strict lists for each of my learners so that we're constantly bringing it up in the next lesson and the next lesson and the next lesson and homework, because a 1 lesson introduction is nothing.
Right. And what does it mean? Recycle. What does it mean to know a word?
Exactly.
Right? Does it mean that you can pronounce it? Does it mean that you can spell it? Does it mean that you can use it in a sentence? Does it mean that you can recognize it when you hear it orally? Does it mean that you know different forms of the word? And maybe it can be an adjective or a verb. So there are lots of ways to reinforce. Doesn't have to get boring. Okay, other ideas on the topic? So what's the answer? Personally, I like the 3 to 5, but it really depends what, you know, what the words are and how we're using them and how they connect to other words and what boxes they fit into.
It also depends on the level you're working with. So I think a higher level student can manage maybe a few more words than 3 to 5. So
Yeah, because they have more hooks. Right? They
Mhm.
have more things that they can connect those words to.
Yeah,
Right.
related words. You know.
Yeah.
Right. One of the things I find frustrating about teaching the lower levels is all levels maybe, but especially the lower ones. There's so much I want to teach them. There's so much, right? And you know, more is not more. More is not better. So yeah, Misty, I'm sure you're experiencing that with your Ukrainians.
Oh.
All right. Other comments? We're just about out of time. All right. If you have lesson materials that you've worked on here or others that you want to share with the group and you want to send them to me, let's say by Saturday, I can send them out to the whole group. And because a lot of you worked on great stuff. So
That would
I
be
always
great.
think if it's a good lesson, it's a shame to keep it to myself. All right.
Yeah, it sounds good.
okay.
Cool.
That's great.
Thank you, everyone. I hope it was
Thank you
helpful.
so much. It was
Thank you
great.
very much.
Yeah,
Nice
no, it's
meeting
good.
Everybody.
Thank you very much.
Hey, Linda, I know this is, maybe this is just too basic, but for me, it would be very helpful to have your expertise like on a chart as far as like the continuum of what you recommend. Does that make sense? So like if you remember that first activity you did with us where you just said which one would be more basic, which one would be more in the middle. If you had some kind of chart that you could send to us or to me,
Yes.
that just said like, you know, fill in the blank with the answers down below would be easier and sort of like a continuum. Is kind of a general thing. And I know it's not, everything's not set in stone, but does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I can put that together. Give me a couple days.
Okay.
Yeah, because like one of my questions is like, do you introduce, you know, written matching exercise first and then jump to a conversation pattern? Let's just talk the third conditional. So that's it's very focused. So I started out with, you know, a written matching and then a conversation, very controlled practice. So you actually have to speak it and then using a picture to generate, you know, using Edward Hopper's The Lady in the Bus Stop. It's a great, I got that from somebody else. It's a great picture. I should share it with people. So yeah, you see my question is written versus practice speaking. Do you rotate those back and forth?
And maybe it could be just like, here are a set of activities that could work really well for a controlled practice, but who knows where they fit. It depends on what's in it within that box. And you might have to sort of make some decisions. Like, I know that's not just like exactly this is before this, before this, before this. It's just like we were talking about maybe the vocabulary cards with the word on the back, or the picture with the word on the back could fall into the top part of the continuum, or it could be in the middle, depending on how you're using it.
Right.
But it would be really helpful. When I was doing my lesson for this class, I was thinking, oh, is that controlled, or is that more independent, or is that, you know, like just basic for me, because I'm fairly new ESL.
It is such a continuum, but yeah, I can put together some guidelines. The other thing, did you guys know, do you guys know WordWall?
Oh, yeah.
Leslie and Rhonda do. WordWall now has the ability to upload audio.
Really?
So you could, Amy Grant discovered that. So you can do it with the computer generated voices. Let me see if I can quickly pull up what she did. Or you can, here we go.
Like an audio file, like an MP3 or a link to like a YouTube or something. What do you mean?
You can upload, you can use there you can have them do a computer generated voice, or
Okay.
you can record audio. And I haven't tried it yet. I assume it's an MP3 or something on your phone. You can record it and then upload it. I sent in a feedback request, like, please let us record it right then and there as you're creating it. The way it is now, you have to have recorded it beforehand so you can upload it. But I'll show you what
Okay.
Amy did.
Let me see what you mean.
She teaches beginners, but you could do this with any level. Oh, this is a matching. Amy likes doing matchings with lots of. Okay, so we're supposed to find uncle.
Daughter.
That's Amy's voice.
That's Amy's voice. Yeah.
Nice.
That's cool.
Uncle. Uncle.
Oh,
good
so we
job.
But yeah, it's fairly, it's available in word wall. It's available in a lot of them. Let's say if I want to create a matchup here, you just go here and you can enter the text and have a male or female voice, or you can upload if you have created it beforehand.
So
Nice.
if you do the enter the text and have the mail, is it automated? You don't have to do the speaking. It will just.
It's computer.
Interpreter.
That's good. That sounds
That's
good.
so it depends, probably better. Amy played with it more and she said for lower level learners, there are a lot of, they were kind of difficult, not that clear. But you know what, anyone want to give me another word?
What's the medium right there? Is that how slow they say it, or?
Sony, this was pictures. This was for pictures. I clicked the wrong thing.
Oh.
Here's the audio. Okay, give me a word.
How about I don't know, but
Aunt.
Which
Or aunt.
Which kind of aunt?
Aunt.
Okay.
And
that's good.
Okay. We can do something more, let's say,
Family.
okay,
headphones.
that's pretty
That's
good.
also pretty
That's
good,
good.
actually.
Family. See what their female sounds like.
Family.
That's fast.
So yeah, that seemed fast to me.
Family.
Family. So you can put, I guess you can put audio and a picture, or match up the audio with a picture. That's super cool. Or match up the audio with a word, any of those.
That's really cool, actually.
I think that's new.
Now I have to figure out things I can do with that.
Yeah, that is cool.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And just speaking of Amy, that one that she did on the sound, the short A,
Uh-huh.
is she gonna do that for the other vowels?
That was so cool, wasn't it? That
It's
video,
incredibly cool. I would love to have the other vowels.
she did it with the E. I saw her E one.
I only got
And-
the A.
I haven't posted the E one and I haven't seen any others. I'll ask her. You got that off the Facebook group?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I forgot. I just saw the E1. More of Amy's videos. Yeah, she did a phenomenal long A, short A.
It was truly phenomenal.
She's taking a curriculum and materials design masters. So she's doing super cool stuff. All right. Anything else you guys want to talk about? Okay.
As
Thank you.
always, it's good to be thinking about all this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, really good.
Just
Thanks for
adding-
being here and thanks for participating.
Yeah, thanks for hosting and among the other things that you do. So thank you.
Thank
It's
you.
great. Take care.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, you guys too.
Okay. Be in touch.
Gobble gobble.
Mhm.